These are my 10 final predictions for Stranger Things 5. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Ty the TV Guy, and like I said, I'm coming at you with my 10 final predictions for the final season of Stranger Things, and these predictions range from takes on relationships to final outcomes of the show that I think will come true, and it's just me basically putting my prophecy out there and seeing if it's fulfilled when the release of the show happens. And also, to preface this, the nature of these is not like super theory intensive. These aren't things that have like less than a 1% chance of happening or anything like that. These are things where it truly could go one way or the other. Like there's 2 or 3 options of how it could play out, and I'm kind of picking one of those. So that's the nature of these predictions. These are actually more on the realistic side. I'm not going like super heady and theory based here. If that's your thing, that's cool. But without further ado, I'll get into my first prediction here, which is that Nancy and Jonathan will stay together, assuming they both live, of course. So I do think Nancy and Jonathan will end up being an endgame couple. Now, I do think Jonathan is in a great danger and risk of dying in this final season, especially through the footage we've gotten of him so far in the teasers. I think it's quite possible that he could bite the dust, but once again, this is a prediction assuming they both live, and even just throughout the season, I think they will stay together. And I've gone back and forth on this one because the Duffer Brothers clearly made an attempt to bring that love triangle back to life, and the relationship between Steve and Nancy was strengthened. He obviously expressed great interest in her on multiple occasions in season 4, making it clear that he envisions her in his future, and she doesn't necessarily shut it down. I mean, she hears him out. She seems potentially even a little interested and flattered, and obviously acknowledges even to Jonathan at the end of the season, saying like, yeah, Steve's actually grown up quite a bit. So it seems like she may be coming around the corner on Steve, and so I get why you could think they're going back in that direction, and it would be, a shame if Steve doesn't get his happy ending in that way. But I just think Nancy and Jonathan have been together for so long. I think the clips we've gotten from them for season 5 indicate that they're going to have a strong emotional connection still, and they're going to be together throughout the entire season. And I know that there's a greater purpose right now, and that they're all going to be fighting against this evil. And if they break up, that wouldn't necessarily make them enemies, I guess. But I just think it would be a little weird if they broke up in the midst of this season, and then were continuing to hang out, the 3 of them. I think it's less weird if, the grouping is Steve, Nancy, and Jonathan. Steve likes Nancy, but Jonathan doesn't really know at this point, and they all just are going together, Nancy and Jonathan still together. I think it would be much weirder, though, if Nancy and Jonathan break up, and then they're still all hanging out, and I don't know. So I think that Nancy and Jonathan are staying together. That's the point there. But yeah, that's an example of one of my takes here and what they're going to kind of look like. It's definitely quite possible that what I'm saying is true, but there are a couple alternative options, including people thinking that Steve or Jonathan will die, and that could kind of make her decision for her, or that she'll just end up with neither of them, which could also happen. My second prediction is that Max will wake up in episode 4, The Sorcerer, and I don't have a great deal of evidence behind this. This is more of just a feeling thing, and when I think the timing will be for the Duffer Brothers to wake her up from this coma, or at the very least show her conscience in the void. I think that one of those 2 things will take place by episode 4, which is the last of volume 1, of course. I don't think they're going to wait all the way to volume 2, or especially the last episode, to bring Max back and wake her up. I do think they'll make us wait it out for a bit in volume 1, go basically the whole volume with just seeing Lucas carrying her around, as we've gotten clips of, and they're even showing her on the poster where she's still asleep in his arms in that coma. So it's definitely apparent that she's going to be like that for a while in season 4. I'm just convinced that they're going to at least change that a little bit and change her state of being in episode 4, maybe even as a cliffhanger until volume 2, seeing her open her eyes. Not sure if she'll still be blind and stuff, I'd assume so, but seeing her open her eyes, or seeing her heartbeat start, or seeing her in the void. I think something of that nature will happen near the end of episode 4. Prediction number 3. Murray will be the only main character to die before the finale episode. So if you know my channel well, you know this, but if not, I have predicted that Murray is going to die for a while now in this final season. I think he is the surest goner of them all, but I think that an important detail of my prediction as well is that he will die here before the final episode and be the only main character to do so. Now, I think he's the lowest involvement character that I consider a main. Like him and Erica are like the bottom of main characters. So anyone less involved than him, like a Mrs. Wheeler or any of like the newer introduced characters that we don't really know what their roles are going to be yet, I'm not considering them part of like the real main core of this show. And so maybe some of them will also die early on, but I'm saying of the main characters, like the 13 to 14 main characters in this large ensemble cast, I think he will be the only one that dies before episode 8, The Right Side Up. And I just think it's because they're going to want to make the stakes feel real all throughout. And so I do think in Volume 2, episodes 5 to 7, that's when it's most likely he dies. And I just think he's going to be the character that can be sacrificed, that of course it'll be sad, but they'll still be able to move forward from an emotional standpoint. And of course they'll just have to finish this fight. If someone like Mike or, just another central character like that died in the middle of the season, it would be so groundbreaking to the show that it would feel off to move past it. And so that's why I don't think major characters will die like that until the final episode. But I do see Murray going in that episode 5 to 7 range. Very confident in that take, as confident in that one as any of these. My fourth prediction is that Dr. Owens will not be in season 5. And this may come to a surprise as many. I'm not sure if many of you Stranger Things fans have ever even been thinking about Dr. Owens recently. I know I only just randomly thought of it a couple of days ago. I was like, that's right. Like, is he going to be in this final season? We know they're not bringing back characters like Argyle or seemingly not Enzo/Dimitri from Russia. It doesn't appear that the police officer Powell, who took over as the chief while Hopper was gone in season 4, it doesn't appear that he's going to have any role here, just based on things the actors have said and, the casting details, what we saw from the premiere. So, there are some characters that have been involved throughout multiple seasons of the show previously, or at least heavily involved in one season, that aren't going to be there moving forward. And I think Dr. Owens is going to fall into that as well. There was an interview with Paul Reiser about a year ago at least, asking if he would be in season 5. I think it was actually a couple years ago, and he said he wasn't sure at the time. Now, maybe he was just instructed to not release that information, but I don't know. I'm getting the feeling that his purpose just kind of has run out, and that the last thing they had to use him for was getting him to that Nina project and reconnected with him and Dr. Brenner for this plan they had in season 4 to get her powers back. I just think, despite how he's fought for 11, and I like him, and I think he's kind of had our character's best interests at heart for a while now, I just don't think there's much of a role for him based on what I've seen and what season 5 is going to look like with the military presence already being there. They don't really need him for that. But the last we see of him is all the way out at that Nina project out west in the desert, and he's basically like locked up by the soldiers, telling them, you better not kill 11. And that's the last we see of him. His status is kind of left up in the air. It doesn't appear he was killed. I think he would be a character that they would have had to kill on screen to officially kill him off. He was significant enough for that, but to me at this point, not significant enough to even come back and be involved here. I mean, they're already going to be spreading out the story to so many characters here. I just don't see him fitting in. Prediction number 5, a secondary character that is in the Wheeler family will die. So essentially that means one of Holly, Karen, or Ted Wheeler will bite the dust in this final season. I'm pretty confident in this as well. I know I said earlier that Murray would be the only main character to die before the finale episode. Well, I could also see one of these characters, which I don't consider to be like main characters, definitely more side characters. I could see one of them falling victim to Vecna and all the tragedies of this final season before the final episode or during the final episode, I guess. But I just think one of them is going to pass away. Something's going to happen with this family, and it's not going to be the main characters within it, in Nancy and Mike. So I think these characters are in grave danger. So now for prediction number 6. This is probably my most theory-esque prediction of this bunch. It says if Will has powers in season 5, it will be because Vecna allows him to or transfers them to him. So I do think Will is going to have some form of powers beyond just his true sight and his seeming connection and sense of the upside down, when he reaches for the back of his neck and just kind of knows when danger or Vecna is near when he's back in Hawkins. I think it's going to go a little beyond that, and I think it's going to be revealed to its fullest extent in The Sorcerer episode 4. That's going to be an all-important episode in this final season, of course. I said I think Max is going to wake up there. I think we're going to become aware of Will's powers. I think those events could actually be intertwined in an interesting way, but that's a topic for another day, perhaps. But for now, I want to talk about the fact that I think Vecna may allow him to have powers. Clearly, from this first 5 minutes we got of Will and Vecna, the connection is deeper and was orchestrated from Vecna a bit more than we even knew from an early stage in this process. And so, we're expected to learn about why Will was taken specifically, and I think he may have saw something in him. And I think in this final season, Will is going to have to fend off Vecna's ability to use him and kind of channel his powers through Will. I think that may be why Will is going to have powers, because Vecna wants him to. And so if he can, figure out a way to deflect that back onto Vecna and his army, I think that'll be the key to the crew prevailing in this final season potentially. Obviously, I think for a while, Vecna is going to give him these powers and be able to force him to use it in a negative way. But I'm hoping that Will can turn it around, or 11 or Max or whoever else can help him turn it back and use it against Vecna. To me, that might be a way that makes sense of explaining why Will has powers, because Vecna wants him to now and knows how to use him as a vessel and can take it to this extent now with his heightened power. So I think it's an interesting theory. I came up with that all myself, didn't see it anywhere. It may have logical flaws in it. It might have some holes here and there. If it does, you guys feel free to shout it out in the comments. But I'm just thinking, like, how else are they going to explain that Will hasn't had powers all these years, couldn't tap into it apparently, and now all of a sudden, just in this final season, a year and a half after the events of season 4, few years after the last time we've even seen him utilize his true sight and be controlled by Vecna, now all of a sudden he's just discovering how to use his powers? No, I think it's because Vecna wants him to have them. That is my theory here, so let me know what you guys think of that. Like I said, I think that's my most interesting take here, to be honest. Prediction number 7 also involves Will, and this one's a bit more lighthearted and simple. It's that Will and Steve will finally say a word to each other in the final season. Now, if you're on social media, maybe you've seen the post that goes around showing that Steve and Will have never said a word to each other in the show, on screen at least. And so we're still waiting for that moment. I think the Duffers are probably aware of this and are going to have it happen. And even if they're not aware of it, it'll probably just happen by happenstance. They're going to be in a lot of the same scenes as we've already seen at the WSQK radio station. And so I think they'll just naturally say a word to each other. So that'll be interesting. I wonder what the first word between them will be. Number 8 is also episode related and focused. It's that the Turnbow trap, which is episode 3, will be a trap for Derek, not by Derek Turnbow. So I know there's some theories swirling that Derek Turnbow, because I believe he's going to be depicted as a bully and mean to maybe Erica and other people around. It's been, thought that he may be an evil source in this show. He may be like a vessel of Vecna or have some connection there where he's bringing an evil presence. But I think he's just going to be a bully. And I think that the trap is going to be on him. Like, they're going to trap him or deceive him. It's not going to be like him trapping other people. You know what I mean? And so that's just kind of my take and interpretation of the episode title. I think that's what it's going to mean. Once again, not that he's going to do the trapping, but that he's going to be deceived or trapped. Maybe even used as bait, so to speak. My prediction number 9 is that Hopper and Joyce will survive and move away from Hawkins together in the epilogue. This is a wishful thinking type of thing where I think they will be together, and I think after the traumatic events of this show, they'll once again want to move away, as Joyce did at the end of season 3. I just think it'll be time for a fresh start and for some new hope moving together in their relationship in a fresh place. And also a big part of this prediction is just that I think they'll both survive, which I'm not sure. I feel like I don't see many people predicting these two to die, so maybe it would go against our expectations, and maybe we're in for a big surprise of one of them biting the dust. I've already gone into explanations in other videos as to why I don't think it makes sense for Hopper to die, because it'd be repetitive, and then Joyce, I just don't see it. But yeah, I think they're going to get their happily ever after, is essentially what I'm saying here. And I think it's going to be outside of Hawkins, hopefully with all their children with them, but I'm not confident in that. Number 10 is that 11 will not kill Vecna. Now, I think this is a pretty bold take as well. I think if our crew is going to win, as they usually rely upon, they'd rely upon 11 to at least, have the final knockout punch, so to speak. Maybe not the knockout punch, the knockout telekinesis move, and kill him once and for all. But I do think the killing of Vecna maybe more up to Will than 11 when it all comes down to it. Now, don't get me wrong. 11's going to have an epic battle, I think, with Vecna and his army to end the show and the action probably in episode 8. And so, don't get me wrong. I think that's still coming. I think 11 could do a lot of damage to him. But I think to ultimately, stop his heart from beating, if he even has a heart. I know he's a monster now. But to kill Vecna, to vanish him, I think it's going to be up to Will ultimately, or maybe it'll be a collaborative effort from the group to take him down, kind of, just like the nature of the show would indicate, because it's all about teamwork and heart and togetherness. I think 11 has saved them so many times, and I think she will save them a lot this season. She will do a lot of heroic things. Even within the fight with Vecna, she'll do damage to him. I just don't think she's going to have that knockout punch. I don't think she's going to ultimately kill him, if that makes sense. So I think it's going to be up to someone else. The most likely person is Will, like I said. But I think he's going to die from another method other than 11 just killing him, with her powers. But those are my 10 final predictions for Stranger Things 5. I could probably release another batch of 10 after just another day of thinking, to be honest. So maybe I'll consider doing that, but I just figured we're about 2 weeks out now. It's time for me to get some of my final predictions on the table, because soon here, it won't matter what I have to say. It'll matter what's on the screen. But I appreciate you guys tapping in. Like this video and subscribe to my channel if you made it all this way. I greatly appreciate the support as I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. A lofty goal, but I'm hoping I can get there. And as always, tune in for more Stranger Things content in these next couple weeks before the season releases, and especially upon release, as I'll be going through so many topics. Thanks, guys. Catch you in the next video. Peace out.